This is a Formative Assessment number 1 by Sandra Lozada and Mark Siegel. Response to Intervention, RTI. The definition of RTI is response to intervention refers to a student's change or lack of change in academic performance or behavior as a result of instruction. This intervention is a way to help teachers identify student struggles in education. After this intervention, a teacher is better off prepared to help the student. RTI is an intervention to help identify a student's struggle in academic performance. There are 4 concepts to RTI. The first concept is effective instruction. In effective instruction, the teacher gives instructions on how to perform in academics. When a teacher notices that a student is falling behind, they go towards the second concept, which is frequent assessment. In frequent assessment, the teacher frequently assesses the student to see how they are doing and assesses the issue. Once they develop the issue, we go towards the third concept, immediate response. They immediately respond to the issue and they try to help the student. And last but not least, the fourth concept, collaborating with home. Once they know the issue, they want the parents to help with the issue and help the students succeed. When the ITR has been assessed, the teacher may discover many things about the student. She may discover, or he may discover, that the student may have disabilities, either emotional or behavioral, intellectual disabilities, autism, and giftedness. This is the RTI model. The RTI model is used to assess students who are falling behind in academics. All students start in Tier 1. In Tier 1, they are in a regular classroom, and when the teacher notices that the student is falling behind in academics, the teacher may assess the student, and when the teacher assesses the student and they realize that they have disabilities, the student may enter towards Tier 2. In Tier 2, the student may or may not catch up in academics. If the student is still struggling, the student will continue to be assessed. And if the student needs extra help, the student will go towards Tier 3, where they will have extra help for the students. The pros to RTI. The pros to RTI is a teacher can begin intervention with a student at the early stage and give a student help as fast as possible. That means the teacher does not have to wait till the student is failing to help the student. In Tier 2 and Tier 3, students are given extra time, smaller groups, narrowed instructional focused, and more frequent assessments. And this can be applied to all students and gives schools a dedicated attitude towards helping students. It requires little testing. The cons to RTI. Little study has proven RTI is effective. This is because few districts have applied RTI to their schools. It is difficult to know whether RTI is effective. Also, when RTI is applied, it is hard to differentiate students with learning disabilities or students who are underachievers. RTI is more likely to determine that a student has a learning disability rather than be a slow learner. Also, the RTI is a very complicated system to implement in the school districts.
Hi, I'm Mark, and today I'm going to explain what the IQ discrepancy model is for determining if a student has a learning disability. The IQ discrepancy model works by testing a student's IQ and comparing it to his or her achievement test scores, such as scores in math, science, or English tests compared to their IQ test. If the difference between the two tests is 2 standard deviation points or more, which equates to 30 points or more, then they are determined to have a learning disability. They are then tested for what that learning disability is and why they have it, and what, if any, special education they need. This is a good test. It was a standard test for determining students' disabilities. It is a quick, easy, and accurate test. It's also efficient. It's more accurate in certain ways since it does not have human errors. It is all determined through the discrepancies in the tests. It also has some drawbacks, such as not being as accurate for a certain period of time. For younger students, according to a critique of the IQ achievement discrepancy model for identifying specific learning disabilities, younger children don't necessarily test accurately for IQ and are not 2 standard deviations from the achievement scores. Therefore, they are not identified quickly at a young age to have a learning disability. This model also does not factor in cultural or linguistic differences between students, and therefore can have misdiagnoses for some students because of that. So, in conclusion, the discrepancy model determines learning disabilities by testing the IQ versus achievement test scores. This has both positives and negatives, and should both emphasize the positives and compensate for the negatives in utilization. It is our belief that response to intervention is the better way to determine a learning disorder. There is less research on the response to intervention model, but the research is not negative in nature, meaning the research on the discrepancy model is mostly debunked, and experts seem to not care for it anymore because it's like a one size fits all disorder. And unfortunately, learning disorders are not a one-size-fits-all disorder. You need a relationship with the student in order to realize their potentials and what they need extra help with. And with the RTI, the response to intervention model, it allows that relationship with the student and allows extra time with the student, as well as all of these that we just stated. There is a higher chance that you will determine a learning disorder earlier on in the student's life, whereas with the discrepancy model, it doesn't show up until they're older in many cases. Importance of student assessment. It is very important to assess students in the classroom because it allows for early detection of learning disorders and makes a personal connection with the student in their education process. Without student assessment, teachers would all assume that every student is the same and no one has other needs or abilities. As we all know, every student is different and has their own strengths and weaknesses. And both the response to intervention and discrepancy models, they both allow us to find each student's strengths and weaknesses. And that's all very important to a student's well-being in school and in life.